You're now live, Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. Said I had the script up, but I've just lost it. Welcome to this meeting of Economy and Growth Select Committee. I'm Councillor Edward Siddle, Committee Chair. I would like to inform everyone present that the meeting will broadcast live via the Council's website and will be capable of repeat viewings. The images and sound recordings may be used for training purposes within the Council. In order to ensure that the meeting is managed effectively, can everyone please keep to the following guidelines for speaking? Councillors should only use the raise hand function when requesting to speak, only speak when invited to do so by the chair. Please switch your cameras and microphones off when not speaking, and remember to set your mobile phones during the meeting. Any views expressed by the speakers either in the meeting are the speaker's own, and they are not necessarily reflecting the views of the council. Can councillors please be aware that the webcast will continue to be streamed live 20 seconds after the close of the meeting. This is due to a time delay in transmitting live. I will now confirm the names of the remaining committee members. I've got Councillor Nev Clark, Vice Chair, Councillor Dan Capper, Councillor Simon Evans, Councillor Paige Hacking, Councillor Ian Huddleston, Councillor Kev Kirkham, Councillor Chris Payne, Councillor Rachel Quinn, Councillor Peter Roberts, Councillor Jill Scott, and Councillor Kath Iceland. I'll now move on to agenda.
Got apologies from Councillor Huddleston.
And I believe Councillor Peter Inman is subbing for him. Thank you for that, Peter. And
that's correct. Thanks.
And let's move on to agenda item 2 to receive any disclosure of interest in any matters before the committee. I'm assuming there's none. So unless anyone desperately wants to put their hand up, we'll move on to agenda item number 3. I'm assuming nothing's been called in, has it, Rachel?
I'm calling, Chair.
Okay. And to approve the minutes of the previous meeting, they're on pages 3 to 6. Has anyone got any comments on the minutes, or are you just going to approve them for me, Nev? And could I get a seconder, please? Brilliant, Councillor Evans, thank you. So we're going to move on to agenda item number 4, which has just disappeared from me now, sorry. And that is agenda item number 5, the Select Committee Work Programme. And that's on page 7. And 8. The Select Committee Work Programme. I mean, we were just discussing it previously, and Councillor Quinn and Councillor Payne are members of the committee. I was thinking probably we should meet up in January, because that allows us to get Christmas out of the way, and then we can come back fresh with some new ideas and new discussions for the committee chairs to meet. I don't know what you were thinking about. I don't know what you think about that, Councillor Quinn and Councillor Payne, if you're on, Councillor Payne.
Yeah, that's fine by me.
Has anyone got anything that they want to add to the agenda? I mean, obviously, if you've got anything that you can think of in between, you can always email it to myself, and obviously fill in the paperwork. I think there's a form, isn't there? You fill in that we can look at for things to go on the select committee.
Yes, Chair, that's correct.
Okay, so I think if we've got any idea, I think what we'll do is we'll have a Councillor Scott. Sorry, I missed your hand up.
No, that's okay. Thanks, Chair. Came up at Community Select last night. Councillor Inman was suggesting that we put the Royal Hotel in Hayfield on the work programme for the Community Select, but it was suggested that it might be more appropriate for this group, Economy and Growth. So I don't know if Pete wants to say any more about that. It was just that it came up at the end of Community Select last night. What do you think, Pete?
No, it was a request, and I had, I think there's something on WhatsApp today from Rachel saying that it will be added to this programme. If that's correct, if that could be confirmed, that would be great.
I was waiting for you, Pete, to raise it. So it would
Oh,
be.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, like I
Well-
said, it's an ongoing issue, isn't it? And we've
Yeah.
obviously had that discussed before. So I do think we do need to look at the the Royal Hotel, because it's such a shame that it's in such a state it is, and it is an asset that is of community value to Hayfield. I mean, there's a couple of other ones that are community assets as well that have gone through, I believe, recently as well. So I do think we should be looking at that, and can we get that looked at and added to the committee? I don't know whether Andrew or one of the the executive members wants to come back on that.
And could I just say that I'm aware I'm not a member of this committee, so what I will do is put something in writing and just send it to you, Chair, if that's okay, and then it can be considered at your meeting.
Yeah, that's great. Andrew, do you want to come in?
The leader first, I think.
Yeah, sorry, Anthony, sorry.
Thanks, Chair. No, as I said last night at Community Select, we can look at adding it to the agenda. It's probably just worth a discussion between yourself and the Chair of Community Select as to which committee it's more appropriate for. Because although it's sort of a settled process, and the last time the process for assets of community value was reviewed, the process went through Community Select. In terms of if members are, more interested in sort of looking at what tools, if any, there are for the council to try and prompt the private owners to sort of take any action to improve the building or anything like that, that would probably fall more appropriately for your committee, Chair.
Yeah, because I do think it's one of those buildings that does need that investment and that in development, because it's such a prominent place at the bottom of Kinder Scout in Hayfield. You've got obviously lots of tourists going there, so there's a big market for it. And obviously, did it used to provide accommodation as well? I've been in it a few times, but I don't know if did it have accommodation as well.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
it does
it was
yeah.
a hotel as well, but it just needs to be noted though that it is in private ownership. It's not a building that the council owns or has any option around
No.
taking into our ownership.
Rachel, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I did, because there are a few issues in the report. Agenda item 7 today. There is a section in one of the in the report about empty buildings, not just residential buildings, but for example, we've got the Buckingham in Buxton. We've got a variety of old hotels, and those are buildings that we also ought to look at. They're not quite as significant in terms of the Royal at Hayfield is really important for the local community. But I think perhaps we ought to, when we have the committee chairs meeting, we ought
Yeah.
to sit down and work out where and how it's most appropriate to come up with a strategy for those buildings. And it might be different for each one, or there might be some similarity, but I think we do need to talk about it.
It might be worth doing an in-person one to have a discussion about that rather
Yeah.
than maybe a Teams meeting. So that's probably
Yeah.
where we'll go with that one. Andrew, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, just to make it more complicated, unfortunately. I mean, the empty property stuff really is under the scrutiny of Corporate Select, actually. So I understand at the last meeting or the meeting before, there was a new empty property strategy which was considered and adopted, which brings into play, because previously we focused very much on empty houses, if you like, empty domestic properties, but it extended scope following comments by members. So again, I think Rachel's suggestion is the proper suggestion. We have a good look at it at the coordination meeting and decide how we play it.
I think that's going to be a good idea, and I think probably do that in person. That'd be a good one to do. So weather permitting, obviously, because we know the Buxton and High Peak weather can be interesting throughout the winter season. So but that's great. Thanks for the suggestion, Councillor Inman. That'd be great. And if you can put something in as well, we can then take that in January to the joint meeting that we have. So I'm going to move on to next agenda item. So I keep having to close documents and open different ones. So we've got the UK SPF tourism update. So Donna, do you want to come in first and then allow Lorraine, then Lorraine will take the rest of it on?
Sure, that's okay, Chair. Thank you. So the executive's pleased to provide this update basically on the council's work over the High Peak Tourism Strategy. Remember, we adopted in early 2023, sets out how we're going to grow, sustain the visitor economy through experiences, partnership, increased promotion of the area. This is a regular item, obviously reflects that commitment that we said we'd keep members informed about the delivery against the action plan. There's some really positive developments and Lorraine's going to guide us through that. Lorraine's also going to provide an update on the UK Share Prosperity Fund, which has funded a great deal of projects, organisations in the borough. I know many of you know about it. The impact in your own wards, villages, towns, etc. And a reminder, in addition to what the update that we'll have today with the options for questions at the end, there was also a confidential case studies sent to members of the committee's emails as well. So just to remind you that there's those for your reference as well. And basically happy to take questions alongside Lorraine and maybe Councillor McEwen, chairs the UK Share Prosperity
I
Board
think
as well.
what we're going to do with the questions is obviously if we get a cluster of them, then we may just pause the presentation, but obviously put your hand up and then we'll see how we go in. And obviously Lorraine, we can all monitor that for you while you're doing the presentation, and I'll alert you if there's any questions.
Thank you, Chair. So I should be sharing my screen now. Hope you can see that. So I'll take you through some slides. So here we go, hopefully. There we go. So the first element of the slides is looking at the UK Shared Prosperity Fund 22 to 25. So it was a 3-year programme that has now come to an end, and then we're into a final year of delivery in 25-26. But one of the things that we've started to pull through, as Councillor Greenhalgh just reminded us of some of the case study we've shared, we've now got an opportunity that we've finished all of our monitoring and sending our reports back to government for what we delivered, to prepare some more information around case studies that we can share now that the team have got a little bit more time on their hands after all the work that they've done in delivering a huge amount of spend over the last 3 years. So what we've got on the screen is just some summary really of some of the things that we delivered, a visual representation of some of the things that we delivered with the funding. We've done a lot more than there's on these 3 or 4 slides, but this just kind of captures the flavour really and the breadth of the activity. And as you can see, the funding was split into various different areas. So there was community and place, business and employment and skills. So hence the breadth of what we could support was really quite broad. So as you can see here, community buildings, we supported improvements to 17 community buildings. We supported pathway improvements to 7 different particular areas across the High Peak, and over 4,000 homes were provided with energy efficiency improvements, and the impact that that's had in terms of reduction in CO2. And then finally, improvements to parks and playgrounds, 3 of those improved across the High Peak area. So in terms of benefits to local community, these are just some of the headline figures. And then moving on to businesses and the support to businesses and what the impact of some of that was. So supported 80 new jobs being created, new businesses created 8 in total, but supported over 280 businesses in all, but also supported a number of businesses in reducing their CO2 emissions, so some decarbonisation work and grants, so that that could help them become more resilient in the future in terms of hopefully helping to reduce their long-term payment of bills, etc. So again, the activity towards supporting those businesses is really has really benefited some of our local businesses across the patch. And then moving on to people and skills, with a relatively modest amount of money actually in the people and skills tranche, we've managed to support 289 people in terms of accessing employment training and services. It supported people in increasing their employability skills, so in training, but supporting 160 people into employment, and then also 42 people in terms of gaining qualifications. So again, helping people in our local communities to either access jobs or gain skills to support them to either access employment or to improve their potential in terms of their earning possibilities. So that's just the kind of key headlines really from the 22 to 25 programme. And the case studies that we shared, they're still in draft, so haven't been fully finalised, but there's a number of case studies there, including some businesses that we've supported, community investments, and you can see from those the benefit that the funding has had, and in some instances relatively small pots of funding, but has really benefited either a community building or a business to expand and grow and export and things like that. So we're currently on the final year of UKSPF funding, so we've got a programme underway, and the total funding for this year across UKSPF and rural funding is just over £1.1 million. There's quite an even split on the UK shared prosperity between capital and revenue, slightly more revenue than capital. And the programme is fully committed now in terms of grants, etc., have been allocated. So unless anything changes or we've got any withdrawals, pretty much that money is fully committed. And up to date, from about a week ago, we'd spent 23%, so there were, which is quite normal when we're in a programme of allocating grants, and then we have to wait for the recipient of the grant or the person who's allocated the grant to claim that money once they've done the works and actually spent the money. So we pay in arrears. So generally that's why it's showing only 23% of spend, but we're fully allocated. And then moving on to tourism, what we've got is some updates in terms of, we've had the STEAM data, so tourism data, and some of the shared prosperity funding from 22 to 25 has been invested into promotion and marketing around some of the walking festivals, etc., and business support for our tourism businesses. So again, I'll just do some summaries on how that's impacted. So the STEAM data, which was received recently, relates to the year 2024, so it's the calendar year of 2024. And in terms of the economic impact of the visitor economy in the high peak, it's reported at just short of £504 million. So that's an increase of 13.5% on 2023. So showing some positive improvements. In terms of visitor volume, a slight increase at just over 6.5 million visitors in 2024. What is to be noted in the 2024 data is the STEAM data historically did not include data from Airbnbs, and in 2024 that has started to be incorporated. So some of these figures may well illustrate so the increases in some of the figures might be partly attributed to the inclusion of Airbnb. So for example, when we look at the distribution of the economic impact, if we look at accommodation up from 63 million to 82 million, it's very likely that that's because Airbnb figures are now starting to be recorded, and therefore that increase is maybe impacted by that change in how the statistics have been collated and reported on. So I just wanted to flag that up. But it is fair to say that the sector, in terms of employment, the sector employs for over 4,000 people in terms of the visitor economy or tourism related activities, both direct and indirect, and that has increased by 10% between 2024 compared to 2023. And the highest performing sectors, not surprisingly, being accommodation, food and drink. So again, showing the impact of those particular sectors and the importance of supporting those sectors to stay thriving. So what we do also get is Buxton being kind of a main tourist hub, is we also get a breakdown of the data for Buxton. So the economic impact in Buxton for last year was 166 million, which is a 30% increase on 2023. But the health warning again on that is the inclusion of Airbnb, and a lot of tourist accommodation in Buxton is probably a factor in, or will certainly be a factor in that particular figure and increase. Again, a similar in terms of visitor volume, an increase of 2.9% on the previous year, so 1.6 million visitors to Buxton in 2024. And again, in terms of employment in Buxton, of the 4,000 employees across the whole of the High Peak, there's over 1,000 direct employment in Buxton in connection with the visitor economy. And then on this one, again, we can see the importance again of food and drink, an increase of 25% in 2024 compared to the previous year. So again, showing that there has been a bounce back following COVID, but showing that steady growth and increase year on year. A couple of things that we talked about previously that we, through our UK Shared Prosperity Fund, had invested in marketing and highlighting the Great Outdoors campaign. So really looking at how we could support activity in and around our main towns. So the Walking Festival is now in its second year, and really it was around trying to promote the High Peak and Derbyshire as the wider kind of activity, but the High Peak in particular in terms of those opportunities and walks and getting people out in the great outdoors, but also linking in some of those walks to town centres, so giving people the opportunity, showcasing what was available and encouraging them into the town centre and highlighting what was available within those town centres in terms of food and beverage offer, which has really paid dividends when we look at the figures and how they've improved over the last year or so. I think it's fair to say again on all of the focus around promotion of the town centres and of walking and walking routes, it was very much the background and the context to it was around being a sustainable tourism, but also responsible tourism. And so encouraging in many respects use of public transport and highlighting and showcasing the opportunities to do walks that either started or ended with a train journey or use of the public transport bus connections, to encourage people to take advantage and avail of those opportunities and promotion of active travel. And you may have seen these in your local areas, but we've produced these, and these have continued to be reprinted and distributed for the summer just gone. As I'd mentioned, the focus really on these walking pamphlets was to encourage people and to show them walks that could be accessed or started from a town centre. So it would really encourage people into the towns and the use of those food and beverage opportunities at the end of their walking, and to promote activities and things that they could do within the town centres. In terms of digital assets, you can see some of the social media activity from these visuals that's taken place over the last year or so. These have been shared often through Visit Peak District. You can see on some of these on their social media platforms, as well as the videos that the town centre videos, etc., were all shared, and also accessible, or could be accessed through YouTube, etc. And these were some of the most successful social media campaigns. And I think we might have on the next slide here some data around what the impact of that social media and digital assets and investment was. So in terms of the number of accounts reached, over 1.5 million, and 28,000 engagements. So that's people who've actually liked or commented on a particular media content or shared it with their respective contacts. And then there was also the Great Outdoors campaign and Walking Festival had their own landing page, if you like. And again, in terms of views of those year to date, again, are showing a really positive in terms of people accessing those pages and looking at those opportunities and walks that are available to take part in. So the social media side of things has been really successful, and that investment that was made, you know, continues to reap benefits now, even 12 months after some of this activity on here. And then there was also some investment from a kind of more press and PR point of view of getting some social media influencers to visit some places in our local area and to do a kind of itinerary, if you like, and what's available. And again, in both of these examples, the focus was on use of public transport. So the Peak Sightseer bus, countryside walk. So first one being, you know, a focus on dog walking and opportunities to go out and do something, and also places that are dog friendly to go and visit. So you can see on here a number of places, venues mentioned where they're specifically known to be dog friendly, and that was done with agreement with those businesses. And then the second one, a trip round Glossop, and that was a train journey from Manchester to Glossop. And then a number of activities in and around the town centre and walks to again promote what's available to see and to visit, and walks within easy proximity of the town centre. And then the Walking Festival, so that took place in the last 2 weeks of September. There were 32 walks featured, combination of some that were free and others paid for events. And in total, 333 participants, or 340 if you include the dogs that came along to partake in those walks. And again, real improvements in the 2025 compared to the previous year, and again, real focus on social media and promotion of those opportunities and those walking events through social media. So it shows there the number of accounts reached and the number of engagements that took place through the different social media channels. So again, showing that improvement and reach, which has again been really important in highlighting the festival to people who may not have been aware previously. And there is, through the slides that you've been sent, there is a business toolkit that we shared with lots of local businesses, and there were packs available. And really that was about making sure that local businesses were aware of the walking festival and they're aware of the activity that's taking place, and giving them the opportunity to kind of talk to their customers and visitors about the events, and to being able to promote them with those customers as they come in. So again on here, it shows in terms of the Great Outdoors campaign, the actual reach in terms of social media, and the interaction that we've had with general members of the public in relation to that the Great Outdoors campaign. So in terms of CTR, click-through rate, is where people have looked at a web page but then clicked to view more detail. So again, it's showing that there's quite a positive response rate in terms of people who've gone from looking at the website to actually seeking more information and more detail by clicking on into further pages for more detail. And the other area that we've supported has been business support. So in giving our tourism businesses the opportunity to come to the High Peak Walking Festival launch, so the walking leaders talking about what was planned, but it was that marketing and allowing businesses to come along, find out more, and then being able to promote it. So for the High Peak Walking Festival and then the celebration event. But we've also offered workshops to businesses to support them with being able to be more prepared in terms of their PR messages, and there's more events and workshops planned in the new year. In the kind of digital age and social media age that we work in, there's one in January about using photos and video to help promote businesses, but also support in February around press releases and direct pitching for tourism businesses. So I think again, all of this investment is to try and support businesses to be more confident really, and have the tools to be able to promote themselves through some of those social media channels. And that is the final slide, Chair. So happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thanks for that, Lorraine. And I know it's been a struggle with the issues with your voice, so well done and getting through that in total. Rachel, Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, right. I just want something to be explained. On the scheme update on those slides there, so it's got the distribution of economic impact, and I was looking at the Buxton one, so it says accommodation up 86.4%. I find that, does that mean we've got 80, well, in terms of people staying and the length of stays, we're up 86.4%, and we've actually got probably fewer hotels. So does that relate to the Airbnb and the number of holiday cottages we've got?
So it's about, spend, so the economic impact on the accommodation is 33.47 million, which is an increase of 86.4 on the previous year. I suspect, and I've asked if we can get more data of how that's broken down across both Buxton and the High Peak, because I think there's quite a significant, it's up. Economic impact was not as pronounced across the High Peak, but you can see there on the Buxton one. I suspect that is because of the inclusion of Airbnb. So some of it might be a natural increase, but I think it's because Airbnb's been added into these statistics and we haven't been given the breakdown of how much is Airbnb and how much, so we can't compare it directly to the previous year. If Airbnb was extrapolated, then we'd see what the actual increase was, if any, in terms of accommodation spend. So that's one where I think there's a health warning that doesn't mean that we've got huge amounts more Airbnbs. It's just that they've been added into the figures this year. And what we do also have in the statistics from Steam is it does tell us the number, it doesn't the quantum of different types of tourist accommodation, so we can look at the comparison between hotel accommodation versus self-catering accommodation. So we do have more detail that sits behind this, but this is quite recent figures and we're still trawling through what it means and trying to understand that and unpick some of it, so we can be much more, so we can provide that information to yourselves. But that's why it came with that health warning that that there is the Airbnb.
So how is that different from all staying visitors?
So all staying visitors will be visitors who will be people who are staying in any type of accommodation. So it would include, I think it includes even where people are coming to stay with relatives. So it's the distinction is between day visitors usually and overnight. So staying visitors are people who are staying overnight, but they might be staying in a hotel, they might be staying in a bed and breakfast, they might be staying in a self-catering cottage, they might be staying in an Airbnb, or they may even be staying with family, or they could be on a campsite. I missed that one, etc. So it it covers the whole remit, but there's a number of different.
Paying accommodation, no, okay. Because accommodation, I suppose if you're staying with relatives, you're not paying, are you? I just, so accommodation is anything, which I would imagine covers hotels, Airbnb, etc. Yeah, okay. I do think it is really important as well, because if we've got lots of Airbnbs, holiday cottages, we're building a lot of houses, and we're talking about being short of houses for local people. And I know I've said this before, where I live, we've got, it's a row of houses where it is essentially affordable housing that young people can afford, but we've got so many Airbnbs that it's difficult to move sometimes. So that is a concern. We could do with promoting hotels, those conversations with the University of Derby in terms of uses for those halls, and getting hotels back into use is really important, rather than Airbnbs, because that can be quite negative for local people.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hacking.
Yeah. Hello. I was wondering, seeing as though we're in the last year of the Shared Prosperity Fund, whether the council was looking for more opportunities for funding for the same sorts of support that we've we've been able to provide to businesses, or will this be passed over to the new authorities? I'm just wondering about like continuing the support, whether we're able to continue that support, or whether it's all up in the air because of local government reorganisation, really. That
in
makes
terms
sense.
of, we know the UK Shared Prosperity funding ceases in March next year. In terms of things like business support activity, there is an ongoing conversation with districts and boroughs across Derbyshire and what role MCA will play in that. So there is potential, there is business support funding that comes through and we've contributed some of our UKSPF to some wider kind of activity. And some of the case studies that we've shared relate to some of the businesses who've been supported. So there is certainly a desire to try and continue, but I think it's fair to say the level of funding will be less. If you think about, it was, I can't remember the exact figure off the top of my head, but it was like something like just over 3 million across the 22 to 25 period, 3.5 million across the Shared Prosperity Fund that we had, and 1.1 million this year. You know, we won't have anything of that kind of scale, I think it's fair to say. Some of this activity that we have paid for and invested in will continue to reap benefits for some of those businesses, but we still need to, and as a team we will continue to support businesses, but we won't necessarily have the same pots of funding to draw on unless there is more that comes forward. But I didn't see anything in the budget today that offered that opportunity in terms of funding of that type.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. My question to Lorraine, looking at the figures, what percentage of these people are actually using public transport vis-a-vis using their own transport? This is very important because these people coming in by their own transport need places to park. We're building 300 houses. Whether the council, the developer, the architect like it or not, there's going to be an increase of up to 600 vehicles needing extra parking in Buxton. So where are the visitors going to park? They're not coming by public transport. The only people that use the train basically are the students in the morning going to Aquinas at Great Moor, and the children then also get off at Woodsmoor who go to Stockport Grammar School. After that, there's a handful of people each way on the train. So where are the people going to park?
We don't. I don't think we've got the data from the STEAM that breaks down what percentage of our visitors are coming in on public transport. But as part of, we do have data on the car parks within Buxton and their usage. So we do have very up-to-date data on that in terms of how many, what the demand is, if you like, in terms of the visitor car parking that is part of the work that we're doing on the Buxton project. So we are aware that over the summer months there is more of a pressure point in the town centre, and that information will be presented as part of the Revitalising Buxton decision-making processes.
Because, as I say, if people can't get here by car, they're not going to come. It's as black and white as that. Public transport was yesterday. The car's here to stay. It gives freedom for people to come here from all districts, not just a straight line up from Manchester Piccadilly.
Maybe I can come in there as well. I think, as Lorraine has said, we don't have the data on how tourists arrive, and I think that is something that'd be great if we could do.
Okay, Damien. Why haven't we got the data? This is very important. You know, we're trying to run now and increase the prosperity of Buxton on an outdated travel system, which is public transport. It's way out of date. The car is here. We need to cater for them.
In terms of collecting that, I think it would be probably tricky to collect that from every single visitor. In terms of the STEAM data, it's one of two national systems that most areas adopt, and STEAM is the one that's used the most, and that gives us year-on-year data. So with the exception of Airbnb figures being in this year, we've got 20 years of data, so it does give us real information in terms of trends. In terms of public transport, a lot of your comments around the trains, I know that's important. I do think that there's been a recovery since COVID. I think there's also some developments, if you're just talking about Buxton, the Buxton line, potentially with some or all of the Buxton line coming within the B network, ticketing, and also from next year, EMCA, the East Midlands Combined Authority, and the Mayor take on transport powers. And I know there's currently a consultation on public transport in our region, and it sounds like we've got comments to share. So I'd encourage you and anyone else in this committee or beyond to make sure they put their views into that. But I think the Mayor seems realistic. She's not anti-car. She understands the nature. She lives in an area that isn't a city, an urban area, and knows that we need to use our cars. In terms of the parking, something the council's definitely acknowledged. We've in addition to what our development partners doing around residential housing, we've conducted studies. We've also taken action in terms of looking at the overall number of parking in the town. But as you've already heard from Lorraine and the presentation, is wherever possible, we want people to not travel to the Peak District. We've had by private car, or at least if they do, to have more like car sharing or other things, because it does cause pressures. We've seen that most recently in the Castleton area, when we've had sort of trends of coming for certain events, and it's caused real issues for our like blue light services to get through. So we do know those pressures, but in terms of everything that's at our disposal as an authority, working with our partners, because a lot of this work is done with the business community, with other public sector communities, is basically to encourage and change behaviour. It won't happen overnight, but all I can say is I can assure you that this council and officers and myself, everyone involved in this area of the work, is definitely pushing that. But I'm not saying there's no golden bullet, unfortunately, Peter. I would like it if there was, but we're doing everything we can with the resources that we have.
Thank you.
That's great. Councillor Scott.
Oops. Thanks, Chair. Lorraine, I thought that was a fantastic presentation, and there's some really positive results, which are fascinating. So to continue the public transport debate, I think Peter and I are obviously at the opposite extremes on this. And I was going to actually ask whether you were pushing green tickets on public transport. Just to give an example, I've managed to get a green ticket to go to Haddon Hall Christmas markets tomorrow. It's only available for people who are coming on public transport. So they are giving £2 off, and they're letting more people in who are coming on public transport. So I'm just wondering how much that has been used. There were really good adverts on the side of the High Peak buses for the Great Outdoors Walking Festival that were really effective. And I think it's a really, really good idea to get businesses involved and kind of venues that people are going to have some kind of green ticket where they present their bus ticket, their train ticket, and they get kind of preferential access, or they get discounts of food and drinks. So I just wondered how much you're pushing that, because it's really working with Haddon Hall for something as popular as Christmas market. So what's the plans for green tickets? Because actually I think public transport is the future.
I'm not certain, to be honest, in terms of whether how many venues. I've seen it when I've been booking tickets for places to say if for certain events you can get, if you're using public transport, you can get a reduction, and therefore, but it tends to be venues that offer those as opposed to. So I'm not sure how many venues actually promote that and make that kind of a feature or a focus. But my understanding is certainly that and I don't know whether Damien actually mentioned it when he just spoke, was that the B network will extend to, from Greater Manchester, will extend to Buxton at some point. It might be 2027, but that will bring reduced fares, etc. as well, which again I think for many people will be of benefit in that it will bring the cost of the travel down on public transport, which is obviously really important as well for people. But in terms of, we can try and support businesses or event organisers and try and encourage them to promote that as an option. Because as you say, for things like, say, I don't know, the Buxton International Festival and things like that, it may well be that particularly I'm sure as well, that they will be attracting a lot of people from outside of the area, that would be a real benefit to really promote that, and hope that would, you know, the reduction in a reduction in a ticket cost would actually attract people then to use public transport.
I think Paul's Cavern do a discount.
Yes,
if you have
indeed.
bus
Yeah.
tickets. So it is in operation, but I think to work with businesses would be a really good thing. Thank you.
Councillor Hacking.
Hi. Sorry, this is a question that I've just thought of, so it might not come across as very well thought out. But I was just wondering whether the Steam data, you know, like you can get package holidays that include like the bus ride there and the accommodation and certain activities. My gran used to go on these sort of things all the time. I just wondered whether we had any data for what percentage is made up of these kind of holiday packages, if you like. Because obviously, if they're going around picking up customers from their homes and whatever, that's going to reduce the amount of cars. So it might be useful to have that data. That was all. Yeah.
We can ask. We can ask that through. I mean, it might be that the local visitor economy partnership will obviously work with tour operators. So it may be that be where people are probably coming in on a tour, a visit that kind of is spending, say, a week or so in and around either in and around the Peak District, or often there's international visitors who come and spend a day in the Peak District and go to other places. So there will be inroads into maybe getting some of that information, but how reliable it is in terms of numbers, but absolutely that is a real area of focus in terms of particularly those tour operators. If they're coming in on a coach and there's 50 people and they're coming to stay locally in a hotel, that's much better than people coming in 50 separate cars, in terms of the impact on the environment and the impact on the town. So we'll see if we can find any data on that, Councillor Hacking.
Yeah, I just had a
Thank
quick
you very
look. I
much.
mean, I couldn't find one of the companies I was thinking of, Alpha. They do a day trip to Buxton as part of a Derbyshire coach tour, but they stay in Sheffield. But I know you do see other coach companies that do use. I think it's the Palace Hotel in Buxton for coach tours. So it might be like National Holidays or Shearings or someone like that may do a tour. But that's interesting as well, because obviously, if we're getting 50 people in on a coach and they're going to be staying in the area, that's going to bring revenue into the area as well. Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, I was going to actually say what you said about the palace. And if we go down to the coach parks, you can normally get some kind of idea. The ones who park at the coach parks tend to be the ones who are here for the day. The ones at the palace are normally on a tour. We could probably get data from hotels, and they are staying in hotels, which for me
Yeah.
is preferable for them taking up local houses as well. So it is something that we should look at, really.
And when I run events, we always try and encourage people to use public transport. So obviously, when it's at the Heritage Weekend, we put it on the website, links to local buses, the local trains and things. So it's trying to encourage groups as well to advertise and say, look, you can get here by train or by buses. Sometimes it's better if people don't come in cars as well, because obviously if it's an event that's all day or like a festival, then you're more likely to want to spend money in the area, go for a meal, go and use the pubs, go and use the restaurants and bars and things like that. So he's encouraging people to use public transport better as well. And I think with the B network, that's going to encourage a lot of day trippers, because if that can bring the cost of the fare and have a regulated fare like you do in London, where once you've done a certain number of trips, it goes down, it's a flat rate. Well, that will encourage people to move about. And I know a lot of people do that as well. People use their the older person's bus pass. Now, my mum and dad, when they were over in Buxton last week, a few weeks ago for my dad's birthday, and they went and had a meal in the town centre, and then they went to a concert at the Opera House and used a local bed and breakfast. So, and also used the local bus to get there and back. So that's what they do. So it can be done on public transport. Obviously, it's more difficult because of the rural nature of the public transport and the fact that we're not regulated, and public transport's been hit hard since the 80s when it was deregulated. So it can be more difficult with getting around in buses, but it can be done. I think it's going to be really interesting, exciting times for growth with obviously Glossop Market Hall reopening at the weekend, and the expansion of that as a venue and obviously as a destination that will bring people into the town. I mean, there's a big buzz around the town, and it's going to bring people in the short term and hopefully the long term. And obviously with the shopping provision that's going in there as well, that will really improve the area. And then obviously the outdoor space that's being developed, so that's going to be really good, massive impact. And that is investment from High Peak Borough Council into community infrastructure and community space that can bring in tourists and bring in money. So I think we've really got to be grateful that the council have spent that money, and that's going to be a real big pull to Glossop over the next many years. So that's a really good project. So well done to the regeneration team and Mark and the officers, and obviously Damien and Anthony and the leadership for pushing that through. Has anyone got any other questions they want to raise before we move on to the next part of the agenda, which is the growth? Is it section 7? We're looking at the growth, aren't we, next after the SPF? So do we want to move on to that one now?
Happy to, Chair.
That's great. I think we discussed before, didn't we, Andrew, that this is going to be brief introduction and questions about the growth strategy, isn't it? Like you've been doing at Moorlands. So I don't know who wants to.
Damien's going to introduce it briefly, actually.
It's basically, obviously, as we said, it's our recently adopted new growth strategy. So within it, there's a comprehensive list of actions. Forgotten the exact number, but it's numbering somewhere, I think 40. And this is basically that commitment that every single committee will bring this back. But I don't think this is not for a presentation. It's more just an opportunity, given that members have seen the report in advance, to ask any questions out of it, officers, themselves. So just buy it. If anyone has any queries, answer those. Okay.
Anyone's got any questions? Obviously, if you can't think of any now, you can always come back to Damien or Lorraine or Andrew with any questions, and we'll get you an answer. Okay. No, we've got. Sorry, Andrew, do you want to come in?
Just break the rules. I think one of the things I'd probably like to point out is that we had that very helpful session at the last meeting in New Mills where we went through, if you like, the sort of town, the individual town centre priorities. So in the update that you've been provided with, there's a section at the back of that sort of talks about what we've done in terms of commissioning some support to develop, if you like, those lists of priorities into sort of town centre and locality action plans. So I just want to give some assurance around, that wasn't a wasted session, very much a session full of rich information. So we just want to move forward now into sort of taking that forward, and that would be something when we have the discussion at the coordination group chair, we'll talk about how we introduce that back into the work programme.
Yeah, that's brilliant, and I think it really does help the central area, because it sometimes feels like if you're in the Glossop area that Buxton gets everything, if you're in the Buxton area Glossop gets everything, and in the middle, well, the two towns Glossop and Buxton get everything. So a real investment in the central area and real growth and strategy in that area will really help us keep the town sustainable and obviously improve the town centrescape for everyone in there. I mean, I think obviously Cass wants to come in, but I do think when the Toddbrook Dam's finished, Whaley Bridge definitely needs to have some sort of event to celebrate the fact that that's finished, reopening the park, and that will obviously publicise the town as well. But I'm going to bring you in, Kath, now as well, and anyone else who wants to come in.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, it was a useful meeting. I agree with Andrew, and I'm pleased that we've got the bins painted. But it's the toilets and the marketplace and number 9 High Street. It is just a total mess, and every day, without fail, people are asking me, and they are not just asking me when the toilets are open, they are asking me, why has it taken so long? I tell them about this other roof that they found, but that's not really cutting it, is it really? We can't keep having these saying we're going to do something and it'll take so long, and then it takes months later, and the developer doesn't seem to bother or whatever. Why aren't we putting some penalty clauses on and things like that? It has made Chapel look such a mess. Not only that with the toilets, I am extremely worried about the cross, because the cross has got all these cracks in from the vibration of the traffic for a certain house. And work needs to be done on that. But we can't do any work on that, the Duchy of Lancaster, till the toilets are gone. So till the toilets are fixed and refurbished, is there any chance that they can be done quicker, or this really needs expediting? Is there anything we can do?
Maybe I can come back first. So the toilets are within my portfolio, the other bits aren't, but I'm very acutely aware. As you know, I work in Chapel, and I hear many of the comments you've said from people who live and work here as well. But in terms of the toilet, I think our communication with the community can and should be better on that, and that is something we're working on. Just to explain, I think with all sorts of projects, there are things that happen, and I think people understand that, but I suppose it's better communicating that. So just people understand what has happened, what the timescales are, and when there's likely to be action. In terms of 9 High Street, otherwise known as the Falling Down House, I think that's a very, very complicated and has a long history, as you well know, but actually we finally got to the point of action. There will be work starting this week. I had an update as of this morning, I think, confirming that also. As you know, it's been a very complicated case because it is a private property with people in residence. In an ideal world, those residents would make the building safe to that standard. Unfortunately, the council's going to have to step in to do that, but I suppose that's why we have public authorities. But we are there with that, and there has been communication on that, and I think the works are due to take about 12 weeks in an ideal world. But again, there may be hiccups, but again, they will be well communicated. I totally get the frustration. I get frustrated with it too. I'm in the temperature traffic lights most days. I'm here to speak to us, so I totally feel it. And it's not just self. I know other Councillor Gawley, Councillor Dupay have made similar.
Yeah. I get that. Everybody's been martyred to death about it. But like I say, I'm also worried about the impact upon the cross. And if we can get things moving along quicker with the toilets, I would appreciate it.
I think
Yeah. Yeah, just to add one thing, because Damien's covered it all. So obviously, I came out into a few months ago with you and Nigel. I've also been out there with Sally as well, to be fair. Fairly recently, I did get in, we did with the leader, we did get sort of nobbled by a few residents as well, and a few business owners. So that's it, but it was useful, constructive dialogue. We had the chair of the parish council there as well, to be honest with you. So I think just one thing I wanted to put on the table is, I understand the complexities around the duchy and the marketplace, but I think we have got a project, Lorraine, haven't we, in the UK SPF, where we just looking at doing the art of the possible and having a look at the ambitions for that area, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then I then accept that we're going to have to sort out land ownership issues and so on, but I'll say this a lot just lately. We've got 2 years and 4 months and a few days to go. So I'm you know, like we said at that meeting we had at the last committee meeting in New Mills, I'm really keen on resolving some of these issues, or at least putting them on the progress to be resolved before we sort of disappear, to be honest with you. So I just wanted to add that to what Councillor Greenhouse said.
Okay, thank you.
Has anyone got any other comments that they want to make about the growth strategy? Obviously, it's going to be on regularly, so obviously if you don't ask your question now, you can always ask it at a later date. If
Just
not,
Chair,
sorry.
on Councillor Sizeland's point, it is covered in the update at RG7. We do say that we're looking at design options in and around the marketplace, and that, as Andrew said, will feed into those locality action plans as they're getting developed. I just wanted, it is reflected on there. Obviously, some of the issues raised are outside of that.
You're on mute, Kath.
Sorry.
Joys of Teams.
It is just a bit frustrating at the moment. Everybody is, I know that, but the sooner we can get these issues fixed, then we can get on to the next stage of the next bit of the market, can't we?
Yeah, so
Thank you.
It's one of those things I always say to people, because obviously I do repair complaints. Like, the issue, if it's affecting you now, is going to be 10 times worse. And when it's sorted and resolved, you sort of kind of forget about it. It's a bad memory, but it goes away. But at the time when things like the house is falling down and you've got problems with the toilets, it's just onwards, and you keep seeing them on a daily basis, and it just looks depressing, and it feels like you're not making any progress. But sometimes slow progress is better than no progress, I think, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but we do need, these things do need resolving quicker. But okay, thank you.
I don't think anyone else has got any comments, so I'm going to move us to agenda item number 8. Any questions referred to the executive member? I'm assuming we don't have any, because I can't see any in the agenda.
No questions, Chair.
I'm going to go to agenda item number 9, where we exclude the press and public, to resolve that the press and public are excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following items of business. that there may be disclosures exempt information as defined in Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. So if you could end the recording and then we can start with